Welcome to the Sense of Soul podcast. We are your hosts, Shanna and Mandy.
Grab your coffee, open your mind, heart, and soul. It's time to awaken. Today on Sense of Soul, we have with us Amanda Marit. She is an international coach, business mentor for intuitive leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and celebrities. She is also the host of the podcast, The Illuminated Woman, and we are grateful that Amanda is joining us today. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Hi, Mandy.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Oh, I love your backgrounds.
Thanks. Yeah, where are you at?
I live in Manhattan Beach, California. So I'm South Bay of Los Angeles.
Awesome. I've actually never been to that beach.
You gotta go, girl. It is unlike any other beach. It doesn't feel like LA here. It's very special. Yeah, the energy is very light.
Ooh, yeah, because you're right. That's not the energy you usually feel like in LA.
No,
we usually just drive down to like Malibu.
Yeah.
My husband works out of Thousand Oaks, so we're there quite a bit.
And where do you live?
We're in Colorado.
Where in Colorado? I have family there.
Do you? So I just recently moved to Parker, but really it feels like, Aurora is where we're both from.
My parents live in Littleton, and my brother, sister-in-law, and two nephews live in Highlands Ranch. So,
like right by us.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
So my parents live there. Yeah. So that's where I'm from, Michigan originally, but they all moved out there a few years. Well, my brother's been out there a while, but my parents wanted to be by the babies. So they've been out there for like 3 years now. So that's technically where home is, I guess, now for me.
So
you're an aunt. You're an auntie.
I am. Yes.
Awesome.
To two little boys. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to chat.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you on too. I was stalking you yesterday. You're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Enjoyed stalking you.
Yeah, I love your website too. I love it. It's great. Just very positive and just has a great vibe. Gosh, you're busy, aren't you?
Yeah, productive. We'll say that. I try to take that word out of my language.
Why is that? Why do you like using the word productive?
Yeah, because I think the word busy, if you just keep attracting things in your life to keep you busy, and busy doesn't always mean you're being productive. Sometimes you're just attracting things to fill up your time, but you're not actually like making things happen. So productive to me is like I'm getting things done and I'm not just busy,
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How often do you podcast?
I do a solo cast a week and I have a guest on. So we just continue to batch episodes when it comes up. And like the people I meet is just very organic. Like a lot of times they're friends or clients or something like that. And it just happens organically. So my podcast has been pretty easy.
Yeah. I saw one that reached out and grabbed me because I think a lot of people struggle with boundaries. And it was called, what was it? Like boundaries aren't. Yeah. So I loved that. I love that. Boundaries aren't bitchy because I'll be honest, when I first really started to implement boundaries, I realized I was doing it in a bitchy way. I was, especially with my spouse, I was being more abrupt and a little too assertive. And it was looking like detaching versus detaching with love.
Yep, totally.
So yeah, I mean, I would love to hear, I think a lot of people struggle with boundaries. What advice do you give for people to make it so that they aren't bitchy?
Yeah. Well, I think it's all about delivery and communication, right? If we are like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you're not respecting me, that can come across a little bit rough to people, a little bit harsh and a little bit like you. I try to not say you or have people say you to people when they're having a conversation because people can feel attacked. And then the way that they respond after that is not really probably condoning the highest self, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always like to say, like, I need to take some space to do this. Or for example, like in my groups, if people want to reach out to me all the time and like try to DM me and that's not the support that I offer in my mastermind or whatever, I kindly say, hey, I can't wait to support you with this. Remember that support's either in the Facebook community or through email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And just keep it kind, but keep it point blank. Like it's not emotional. It's not this or it's not that. It depends, it's not a one size fits all. So I'd have to know more about like the situation specifically, because it is, if someone is friends are dragging and pulling on you and expecting a lot from you, or, there's a topic of conversation that makes you feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you do have to say, I don't feel comfortable talking about this, so it just depends, I guess, on the situation, but I always try to keep it non-emotional, and also speak transparently, like from the heart, have an open conversation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. Non-emotional and straight to the point. I like that. And actually that example you gave was a great one, because, I used to try to sponsor people in AA, and I would always get emotionally attached to them and their situation and feel responsible if they failed. I get emotional about it.
Yeah. And it's okay, because it's just touching on something underneath the surface. It's like when we get upset about something, because I get upset when people would cross my boundaries, and it's like, well, you're stepping through a new threshold of you where you're owning yourself differently. And also it's just an indication that change is happening when emotion comes up, I always like to say. So at first I would get like, why are they all pulling on me? Like sometimes in my groups, because I lead a lot of big groups, I'm like, but I realized I just need to set a boundary. That's it. I just need to let them know kindly what it is. No one gets upset about it. They actually don't. They respect you more for it. Then it gives them permission to set boundaries as well. But often it's like, we're blaming other people, but we're the ones allowing it. So I always remind myself like, okay, well, I'm kind of allowing this. So they think it's okay. So I need to just let them know that this is what it is.
Yeah. I just learned this with my dog. Mandy and I both just got puppies.
Oh.
And I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing.
What kind of dog?
If you allow this to happen, then it happens. If you put down, that strong boundary, it doesn't happen. And we both got Labradoodles. They're adorable. They're absolutely freaking adorable. And she might cry. She did not poop. She's the pickiest pooper ever.
I know dogs have their little quirks for sure.
But yeah, you're right. And, I want to say that I had found myself also, running into where people, like, things weren't a priority like they were to me, like time, like when we have people sometimes not show up, and it's like, oh my gosh, like we have such a big schedule. And then when you don't show up, somebody else could have been in here or whatever. I value time a lot.
Yes.
And growing up, my dad was like this. And I will admit that I might be late. But if I tell you I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. Yeah. And so I used to get really disappointed. And now I'm just like, knowing that in advance, there's impermanence and anything can happen, because that kind of let me off a little bit in holding people to the same standard that I hold myself to.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
I have a trigger with time too. I still do. I'm like, because I'm from the Midwest originally. And it's like, I grew up like on time is late, but I don't mind when people are a few minutes late. But if someone is consistently, like before I had a business partner, she would always be like an hour late. I'm like, nope, you're not respecting my time. So I had a thing with that too, of just, honoring commitments, because I want to respect people's time.
Yeah.
And because to me, and maybe this is something I got to look up, but I'm like, if you're not showing up, like you're not respecting somebody else's day, their time, their schedule, what they could have been doing otherwise.
Yeah. And then, if you can't do it, say it in the first place.
To me, that's just shitty leadership. If you're not leading yourself and showing up and committing to others, then to me, that would be like a boundary set too, of like, I'm not going to keep having this person reschedule. Like they have to make it happen. And I think there's like a balance too, of also holding other people accountable in our lives. And especially the people that we're like working with or supporting. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're my highest level client. I don't care who you are. You will respect each other's time, and then there's that both sides of it where we can still say, of course we trust. If it didn't happen today, then okay, like we can also hold both perspectives as well, but still setting boundaries with people, because then then they'll fall into place around those boundaries, or they'll fall out.
Right.
And that's okay too. And sometimes it will disappoint people, but that's not yours to take on, right?
Tell us about this book. That's exciting. That's productive.
It is productive. It's productive. And I gotta admittedly, like I've been getting guidance to do this book for a long time, and I've been putting it off. And saying, oh yeah, I'll start that tomorrow. And then it's like 2 years later.
Yep.
And, obviously there's things to look at underneath that. Why am I not actually doing this? What am I afraid of? Or what is the story? Or what is the thing? Or what is the perfectionism? What is it?
Yeah.
All of those things. Or is it just sitting down and doing the dang thing, and commitment to that. But this book is going to be a whole transformational journey. So I also train spiritual coaches. And so I teach higher consciousness and how to navigate from the lens of the soul and bring it into this body though, and make it real. We're living life, we're making money, we're doing the dang thing. So it's not so much super heady. It's bringing that into an actual realistic way that you can apply this in your life. And so I want to take some of the things that I teach through there and just the way I navigate life. And it's a whole book pretty much of communing and working with your higher self to be guided into your highest life. And how do we do that mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and in the physical world? So there's a chapter on all sorts of different lessons and reflections, and there's going to be a workbook with it. So it's going to actually take someone through a transformation, but learn how to commune themselves with their higher selves. Because a lot of times we look outside of ourselves for the answers. People go to psychics and intuitives, and that's fine. That's okay to do that, of course. And also you have an inner guidance system that's stronger than anybody else's for you. So when you learn how to listen to that, you don't really need to rely on somebody else's gift. You can learn how to follow yourself and trust yourself above everyone else. Yeah, it's going to be a whole journey of hiring your higher self, essentially, to work with you.
Oh my God, I love that. Hiring your higher self.
That's the name of the book. And I haven't really told many people that. So there you go. But by the time this goes out, it probably might be out. So
that would be amazing.
Oh God, I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It'll be fun and cheeky too, because I'm a little playful.
Yeah. And you cuss. I love that.
I think a lot of people get confused. They want to live up in this soulful state all the time, but it's just not reality. We're here on earth, and you're right. We work, we have to thrive, we have to pay bills. We would all love to live in that space of like meditation, but we can't. So I think sometimes they get confused on how to have that balance.
Mm-hmm.
And is intuition something, that soulful piece? I mean, do you believe intuition lives in your soul?
I believe that it's a part of everything that we are, if we learn how to tune into it. Because it's our soul that's guiding us. Yes, I believe that our soul, God, source, whatever people believe in, that's what's guiding us. But I also feel like we can bring it into our bodies, where our bodies actually start to become antennas for what that voice is too. So we can feel things actually in our physical body. For me, and how I've always been given, it's guided by our higher self, by source, by this higher version of ourselves.
Amanda, tell us about you. How did you find your purpose? What did your journey look like? We find that a lot of our guests, unfortunately, had their pain turned into purpose. What kickstarted your journey and transformation?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that happens for a lot of people, is pain into purpose, because that's when you get a wake-up call a lot of times. Is otherwise we're just going through the motions of life. Nothing's really changing. There's a variety of ways that this can happen for people, but we are in a human body, and we live in a dualistic world where we're here to grow and to learn and to expand. And part of, not the only way we can expand is through challenge, but a great way that we expand is through challenge, right? Grow. So for me, there's a series of things for sure, but I was back in corporate America. I worked at a staffing firm actually, and I was with them for 7 years and climbed the ladder and all these things. And about halfway through that experience, I was looking around, I'm like, man, I have it all together at my job, and I'm getting all these promotions and all these things. And that's wonderful. And my dating life is kind of a hot mess. I found myself just attracting all these men that were emotionally unavailable to me. And I had a moment where I was dating someone, and then I saw him out with somebody else. And that was a breaking moment for me. We were kind of on and off. He didn't really owe me anything, but I was like kind of chasing energetically, not really, but yeah, kind of waiting around for him. And expecting him and thinking like, oh, this could be my person, all these things. And he was absolutely fucking not my person. But so I had this moment where I was like, never again. I'm never, ever going to, this is done. I can't do this anymore. I can't attract these painful experiences anymore. I felt like there was something wrong with me. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why are all my friends in these relationships? And like, I can't get anyone to commit to me or whatever. And I feel like I have everything going on for myself. And so I started seeking for answers, and it led me down this whole personal development road into all these different spiritual texts and books about angels and all these things I was always fascinated with. And I realized I wasn't seeing myself as worthy. I didn't feel enough. I was looking for love in other things and other people. And I didn't know how to give it to myself. I didn't know that I wasn't actually fully loving myself to my core. It's like, oh yeah, I love myself, but love is like really fucking deep. And when you really love yourself, you don't settle for less than what you want. You do not chase after. A queen does not chase after.
Amen.
No, we do not chase after things that aren't showing up. Hell no. We don't.
You must have felt so free.
It was the beginning of it, I will say. It was a hard truth to face, right? And emotions coming up and all those things, but that was my catalyst. I'm like, okay. So once I did have a really huge breakthrough with that, and then of course I had to take a look at all my relationships with men, even in my family, and see where I was outsourcing my love or looking for it outside of me or feeling like I wasn't getting it in the way that I wanted it to receive it. So I had to go on a journey of giving myself all the love and dating myself first, really falling in love, finding a way to unconditionally love myself. And that's like the deepest parts of you, not just the buy yourself flowers and like wear sexy underwear to bed. It's like, yes, do those things for sure. But can you tell yourself that you are enough, even if no one's choosing you? Can you choose yourself? Can you choose yourself first? And so that's a continuous journey of choosing yourself over and over and over again. But it's how I've gone from literally lacking self-confidence to now teaching it is what has been that. So yeah, that was one of my biggest breakthroughs. And I started a blog and no one really knew about it. I hid it from people I was dating and all the things. Like I had no one in my life that was into this. So it was kind of just me and mentors I would find and things. I started a blog and then people started asking how they could work with me. And then that's how my coaching business started.
Wow. First of all, the way you described self-love it was so beautiful. You know, that really fucking deep love, that love that every ounce of you, Shanna uses that word all the time, freeing, because once you've got it, it does feel like you're just so free from the world and expectations and others. And you feel so strong and stable, but it is a challenge. Like for me, it's a daily thing.
Yeah.
It's literally a daily. Sometimes
absolutely.
Sometimes it's a every minute thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's always going to be that way. And I know that. At the same time, once you grasp it, there's no going back.
Yeah. Because nothing feels better than it. And, you know, when you put that responsibility on other people, we give our power away. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. And I mean, little triggers will come up where you don't feel enough.
Yeah.
Where self-doubt comes up. And then it's an opportunity to continue strengthening the relationship, but continue really to awaken to that higher you and heal the little things.
Do you think that once you're aware of that, like the awareness never goes away though? Even if it comes up, it's still, you know, at least you're aware of it. Because I always tell people that too, because they're like, oh, you know, just, you know, I thought I did so much work and then, you know, I can hear that voice. And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of work. You can actually hear that voice. Just imagine.
Yeah.
How many years you went not hearing that
not
voice
hearing
and
it.
just living that voice. It's huge.
Yes, because we all have that inner part of ourselves, the inner child, wounded part of ourselves that will show itself. So it's not about trying to get rid of it fully. If you do, you're going to have a lot of fucking resistance every day. You might as well just accept that part of yourself because that's when you free it anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nurture it. My journey started much like what you just said. I even started a blog and was praying to God no one would ever read it. Yeah, I've come a long way with that. But it started with self-love because it's something that wasn't taught to me. It was like give, 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 definitely had codependent relationships with everyone. I always go back and forth. Was it the self-love or was it the awareness? I mean, it has to be the awareness of the fact that you don't have the self-love. So, being like two of the most important, I think, and most vital parts of everyone's health and wellness and journey.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you teach self-love, awareness. You teach them how to tap into their intuition and trust themselves. That was the hugest thing for me, was learning to trust myself, because I had been in so many abusive relationships with men and made so many decisions that weren't great, that I didn't know if it was my intuition or my mind messing, and it was really hard because sometimes the person that we can manipulate the most is ourselves.
Yes.
We can brainwash ourselves. So I still struggle with self-trust. Like the amount of anxiety I had over the last 2 days before I was supposed to go do a small team building event for this corporation. I was like, why am I having so much anxiety about it? And when I really stripped it down, it was because I felt like, do I trust this? Do I trust me? Am I worthy of being the person that goes and sits with these 4 like CEOs and teach them about how to bring soulfulness and authenticity and vulnerability into their workspace? And it really, truly came down to not knowing if I should trust myself in the process of what I put together. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks, because like Shanna said, I've done a lot of work on myself.
Yeah.
But then I sat back and realized, no, this is just a space for me to wrap my arms around myself again, give myself a hug. And I just went full force, and it was wonderful.
Yay.
And then I was like angry at myself that I spent 2 days having so much damn anxiety.
Especially because it was so fun for you last time too.
Every time.
You need to have more confidence in yourself. I 100% believe you'd be wonderful at that. But it's true. It's just like that fear, that I won't be good enough. You have these expectations of yourself. And well, Mandy, she's the one who always tells me expectations lead to resentment. And
yes,
it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, maybe it's just a party that was up leveling too into serving even more of those people, and just little parts of you that didn't feel enough for that or ready for that just come out. And I think it's normal to have those fears come up. And now you can remind yourself next time, be like, no, I fucking crushed that. I crushed that. Yeah. They need me. I don't need them. They need me. They need me. Yes.
What would you tell like one of your clients? How do you know if it's your soul, your intuition talking, or your ego?
Yeah. Well, for me, like the soul comes in very empowering. It comes in loving and soft. Even if it's like humbling yourself, it's still a knowing. And for me, when it's fear, a lot of times when you really take a step back and you do know, if you let yourself know at the end of the day, if something's not honoring for you, or if something doesn't feel right. And so I try to first get out of the head and tune into my body. How does it feel actually? And depending on the scenario, if it's a relationship, is this actually feel respectful and honoring to me? Is this, because I don't believe that I ever have to say yes to something that doesn't feel good to me. And does this feel right to me? And usually if we really get honest with ourselves, we'll know the answer. A lot of times we're afraid to follow our intuition because it means we don't get exactly what our mind or our ego wants to have, right? We want to change the person into who we want them to be, or right? Or we want to make excuses for people or whatever. At the end of the day, like we can't mess anything up that's for us. It's impossible to. For me, it's like getting really humble and following your inner knowing versus what you want to twist someone in a pretzel to become, right? And then also too, regarding business stuff and regarding, it's like, sometimes we're afraid to say no to things out of scarcity, right? But if it's not sparking joy, if it's not lighting a fire, like to me, the intuition is leading me to a place that sparks joy. So if I'm hiring a person and I have a weird, murky feeling in my body about the person, then they're not getting hired. Like it has to be a full fuck yes. So I also give myself permission to give me those feelings. I give my higher self permission. Hey, if it's a yes, swing the door open, make it loud, make it bright, make it unmistakable if this person's for me, in dating as well. And if it's not, close the door. I'm willing, take it from me, do it for me, give me a pit in my stomach, make it loud if it's a no. So I also give my intuition instructions to speak to me very loudly. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm willing to be humble and let go of something if it's not for me.
What happens if you decide to go ahead and go against that?
Well, then you just learn a lesson.
In the long run,
you learn a lesson.
Feel like, if it's not meant to be, it actually, even in the long run, it won't be. So you've just been going against the grain kind of thing.
Yeah. And it won't feel good. And you'll know. You'll get red flags. It won't feel honoring. Something will feel
authentic. Right.
It won't be authentic. Yeah. All your shit's going to come up, but not in a healthy way. Cause when something's for you, and it's not something you have to doubt again and again. I see a lot of people, friends included, where they're like continuously doubting. Oh, I don't know about this person. I don't know about this person. I'm like, all right, don't come to me anymore because you already know what the answer is. I'm like, okay, you already know. Either you stay in it and you have an experience for now, or you just leave, right? For me, it's just clear and clean at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and so like I'm house hunting right now as well. I'm looking to move into a new place here. And I've walked into a few that were nice, but they were not they weren't a yes. They would have worked. One was like beautiful ocean view place, but it wasn't more expansive than the house I live in now. And I'm like, nope. And it just didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. It wasn't everything. And so on paper, it could have worked and other people might have maybe said yes to it. But I'm like, I don't do that. When I walk in, I want bells to ring in my energy. Like I want the yes. Like when I walked in this home, it was a yes. I knew right away, even though like I knew right away, I knew when I was walking in the door, it was already a yes. Like I could feel it, So we have to get bold and trust ourselves and also not lean into scarcity with it. Cause sometimes the mind is like, well, what if nothing better comes along? So then you settle. And I'm not about that life. Even if it's 20 minutes before I need the thing, I'm still not settling.
I love that. I love you said it has to be a full fuck yes. Yeah. People might get frustrated with like, they might be like, where are you kidding? Like, come on, be grateful. This place is almost perfect. And you're like, no, I'm not settling.
Like, this isn't the one. I know it.
Mm-hmm. Is there a place for fear? Like, what if there was no fear?
Again, we're in these bodies not to just float on a cloud and just be happy all the time. And fear is a threshold. Fear is a threshold into a next level version of ourselves. It's how we grow. When we step through fear, we're stepping through a comfort zone. We're stepping through an old pattern. And I feel like that's kind of the game of life almost, right? Is like when we stretch and we expand, there's something that we usually have to move past. Like our old comfort zone has to stretch and expand, and that's not always comfortable. And then also too, fear can be getting our attention sometimes. If that works for us and that's how we're wired, sometimes fear can get our attention in a variety of different ways. Like you can get a bad feeling about somebody. We need to have that come up for us. We can get a bad intuitive hit about something and it's like, oh, don't do that. And not to do that, not to step into that experience. And then also, like all parts of ourselves are welcome on the journey as well. And all parts of us are, and including fear, helping us in some way.
And it should be temporary, right? Like any emotion.
Exactly.
I think one of the hardest things as a parent or as an aunt or as someone that just loves someone deeply is when you have intuition about someone else and they aren't willing to like listen, or they just think that you're being, like my daughter always says that I always think the worst. you like mom, you always think the worst thing's going to happen.
Oh.
Like there's this one specific road. I know this sounds so nuts, but there's this one specific road by us that just terrifies me. So I have this intuition that something very horrible could happen on this road. So I just ask my family not to drive down this road.
Yeah.
And they think I'm absolutely nuts.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think you're nuts. And I just got chills. And then also if you do drive down the road, just like pray, just pray you're going to be safe and protected. But maybe, there's a reason why that fear is coming up for you on that road. You never know. Maybe like a boulder is going to come down or something, or I don't know what the road's like, but trust that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. And then you don't know if it's yours to give away. Like this is my intuition about you. Is it my place at all to tell you what I'm feeling about you? Like, is that even my place? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes it's not,
Yeah.
unless it's invited.
Exactly.
I always say like, I don't coach somebody unless it's invited, or I know that they're open to feedback or they're open to things. Otherwise I can't.
So what does life look like for you today with not settling? Like, tell us, like, what does your soul feel? Like, how does it feel today versus how it felt back when you weren't loving yourself?
Yeah. Free. Yeah. Free. And it doesn't mean it's perfect in every moment. Of course, I'm growing, unraveling, getting prepared for my next part of my mission and things like that as well. But free, because it's like letting go of needing. I remind myself of this, of course, needing anyone else to show up for me, and not holding out on the things that I truly desire because I need someone in my space or I need something to fill a void for me. Some days are harder than others with that, and I've been shown visions of my partner. And I mean, there's multiple partners that we can have. And so it's actually shifted a couple of times, which is interesting. But it's like when I date someone, it just doesn't necessarily go very far when it's not my person, because I know it up front, because I'm psychic and intuitive too. And I could see people's energy and I'm like, it's not going to be a fit, it's not going to be a match, or I don't feel inspired by this. Like, I have to feel inspired in a relationship. I have to feel inspired in my friendships, have to feel inspired in my life. Otherwise, if I don't feel met, then I'm not feeling inspired, at least moving forward, the kind of people that I attract in, it's like we inspire each other by how we live and show up and what we're creating in the world. So for me, I'm not willing to settle on that. Like, I know when I meet my man, it's going to feel inspiring equally on both ends, and feel like a yes, and feel easy and feel sacred and divine. And there's just going to be a different level of that. And I believe, like, the more we work on ourselves to step into that freedom, then we call forth that level of love and relationship. So I also know there's a part of my soul that hasn't let me meet that person yet, maybe up until soon or whatever, because there's growth that had to happen on my end. Otherwise, I could grow past a partner in a relationship. I need someone who's willing to continue growing with me and has the same sights that they set on, and the same qualities and morals and integrity, and
aligns with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Aligns. Yeah.
Aligns with you.
I feel like you really broke down, like, how Buddha says, the root of all suffering is attachment. The way you just said it is, you don't need anyone to show up for you. Like, you're not attached to anyone. You're attached to yourself.
Yeah.
And gosh, I was also just sitting there thinking, why, especially as young girls, did we not learn this? It's so important. I've been sitting with my daughter all week, helping her study for finals. And I'm like, none of this shit is even nearly as important as self-love in a class that you need to learn about that.
Yes, I so agree. I was leading an event actually for girls who lost their mothers this past Sunday. I was invited to speak, and like, all this stuff needs to be taught. Like, when I asked, I'm like, who knows what intuition is? No one raised their hand. No one raised their hand. And by the end of the session, they were connecting to their mothers and getting messages from them in spirit and their meditations, and like breakthroughs are happening and things. It was really beautiful. And I taught them about self-love and following your dreams, and never letting anyone tell you that your dreams are too big or what you want can't happen. Like, and we aren't taught that as children. We're taught you got to go to school, get good grades. This is the kind of job that pays well. At least that's what I was told. Enough to say no to that, but
yeah, this is the rise of the divineness. Yes, our mothers didn't, and their mothers didn't, and for sure the mothers before didn't. And so that's what this is. This is the rise of the divine feminine. And so we get to teach our children this, and they get to teach their children that. That's
absolutely. Right. Yeah, I love it. And it's important. Yeah. And your children are lucky to have you.
And our boys too, to teach our boys that feminine, to how to their feminine energy. I was this group that I yesterday that I hosted, there was a man who broke down and started talking about how difficult of a choice and a decision, and the weight that he felt on his shoulders as having a wife at home with a brand new baby and choosing that she wasn't going to go back to work. He's like, that is so heavy on me. Like, I am so terrified. Like, I am responsible for her and the baby. He was like, it's just so much to carry. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was very refreshing for a man to share that, because throughout time, men, that's just what they were taught to do. You go to work, they stay home and take care of the baby, but you rarely hear them expressing how stressful that is on them.
Yeah.
And he really got to tap into his feelings, and he got a tad emotional, and it was very refreshing.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too. He must not be from the South.
Yeah. He's from California.
Yeah.
That was something I went through, though. Just that role has changed. There's men staying home now, and women working.
Amanda, do you find that it's harder for men to tap into their intuition than women? And do you find that more women come to you wanting to than men?
No. Men lately, especially more than ever, on podcasts have been asking me about intuition. And men I meet even too around town. I was having dessert with one of my girlfriends just sitting up at a bar at a really nice restaurant like about a month ago. And there's a guy that was sitting next to me, and he was asking me how to follow his intuition. And then the next time I saw him in town, I was like, gave him another tip, because I was like, I thought of him later, and I'm like, I got to tell him this, like easy ways to follow your intuition and tips and tools on that. Men are awakening now to that. So I feel like there's a fascination, at least with what that could mean. And there's like doors opening for men. In the past, I don't think that they were quite as wanting to learn about that until very recent. But yes, I mean, women are tapped more into their intuition in different ways. I feel like women are drawn to that because that is more of a feminine energy, is the intuitive world, and the feelings and all of those, and the visions and all those things is more traditionally felt in the feminine. But the masculine, they're already intuitive. They just don't know that they are, it comes in more as like a cognitive knowing, right? But when he's holding his flame at a certain level, it comes in a different vibration, if that makes sense as well. Yeah, there's different ways, that I think men are intuitive as well, and they don't know it. And I love supporting men. It's actually so fun for me, because they take what I teach and they literally run with it. And because they're newer to some of these concepts, like you crack the door a little bit and like so much happens for them. When they start to soften, everything starts to change. And that's really, really cool. But they get freaked out sometimes, or at least some of the ones for me. I don't want to generalize, but some of my traditionally very masculine men that I work with will be like, oh my God, I'm seeing 1111. It's freaking me out. Like they actually are like, it's really cute. One guy in particular, he's like, it's freaking me out, Amanda. All these things ever since I've been around you. He's like, a white feather appeared on my car seat the other day. What does that mean? Like all these things.
Oh, wow.
Like I'm seeing these visions, and like, when we're in each other's presence, like things just happen. And all these crazy opportunities have come to him. Like all of these really crazy opportunities. Like he's a bigwig in the finance world, and he got like all these people wanting to invest in his new thing that he was doing. And he's like, how did I get these people? And it's honestly really cool. I'm here for it.
That's awesome. I love it. My son called me one time, and he was I'm freaking out, Mom. It's the guy exactly like that.
It's cute.
Seeing this one bird over and over and over and over again, sitting on this fence. And but I was just happy that he had that awareness, because then I also knew that he was being very present in his life. Yeah.
How old is your son?
22.
Cool.
Yeah, my son, who's 25, for Easter, I gave him that book, The Four Agreements.
Nice.
He read that book. Then his dad read that book. Then they took and got his friend Carson that book. And then his friend Brandon read that book. And then they all start talking about it. Now they're on the second book. And I'm just like, and you should hear them. It just like expanded them Give him a different, but
That's
of course,
book.
When you hear it from mom, you're like, yeah, just like anything else, But I just, it's an easy book. It's a quick book. I find it to be so amazing how it's spreading throughout his family and his friends. But you're right. And that is also getting in touch with your feminine side. I mean, they may not want to see it that way, but going inward, connecting to your emotions and making that space. For me, it's a feminine kind of thing in a positive way, in a beautiful way, getting in touch with your emotions and that soul connection.
Yes, I love that so much that he read that book and his friends. It's a good one. It's a good place to start too for people that are newer to personal development and stuff. And it just makes sense. So.
Yeah, I told him, I said, okay, well, the next book might be a little bit harder. I was going to throw at him that Power of Now.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amanda, the word psychic really freaks a lot of people out, especially religious people.
Yeah.
There's a group of kids that come to my house a lot and ask me to like sit with them and any sort of downloads or intuitive thoughts I have, share and I like to use cards. I like to use a pendulum. I use all kinds of fun stuff. Sometimes I just use pen and paper. Sometimes I use nothing. Well, there's one particular father came up to me recently when we were doing prom pictures, and he was like, my son has better not have ever done that at your house. And he was very concerned with the word psychic because they think that's witchy. You just said you're psychic and intuitive. Are they one of the same, or what do you think about that? And a lot of people come to us, and the reason they want to be intuitive is because they want to immediately be able to talk to people that have passed. That's their fire under
more of
their
a
butt.
medium. Yeah. Yeah. So I usually don't use the word psychic too much. Sometimes I do it like playfully, but I usually use more of the word intuitive. I actually don't believe that people can predict your future for you. You're the one creating it. And when you make a shift in your inner world, then you change the timeline for your life, and no one can actually predict the outcome of your life. You are the creator of that. And so I try to help people become their own greatest intuitive. Now I get intuition and visions for my clients all the time. I'm working for an artist and I'm like, I'm being shown this. I'm being shown you should write music on this, or I'm being shown that if you do this, then this will happen, or whatever. I'm being shown this as a possibility. Now you feel into that and see how that feels for you. And sometimes they're like, oh my God, I've gotten ideas about that before. And it's a confirmation, or we feel into it and they're like, wow, that's amazing. Let's play with that. I get visions for people of how to help them move through fears and how to step past maybe thresholds in their life and to expand into something greater. I'm like, I'm being shown you on a stage. Have you thought of speaking before? I get things like that for people all the time, but it's not like on August 1st, this is going to happen to you, or anything fearful or scary. For me, it's always empowering and uplifting. And I usually try to, even if I'm getting shown something for someone, I try to call them into their own understanding and their own knowing first. Like, for example, I can see people and I'm like, she's not with her like highest partner, but I'm not allowed to tell people like, that you're not being encouraged to stay in that relationship. Like, I usually do not tell people that, because that can, one, be very damaging, but two, they have to figure that out on their own. So a lot of times I will call them into their own understanding and call them back to having their higher self give them guidance on what to do. And them just getting humble enough to really tune in and decide that for themselves. Very rarely will I be like, unless a friend. I get premonitions all the time where one of my best friends just broke off an engagement. I'm like, thank freaking Lord, because I was getting nightmares about her with this person, but it didn't feel right to share at a certain point. But after a certain point, I did, because she's a good friend of mine and she gave me permission to share. And I asked, usually I'm like, can I share something I've gotten? I'm like, this person is not a good person. And she's like the biggest beam of light in the world. And it did unravel, and it was accurate. And she knew in her heart of hearts what that answer was anyways, but she had learned her lesson from that. So I think psychic, to be honest with you, it's been painted in such a negative light too, in movies and in things like that, where it's like something scary. Like, we're all psychic. We're all intuitive. We are all, and they've programmed us to believe that's weird.
We were burned at the stake and killed for over 200 years for having intuition. I mean, this is a condition passed down generational. These are the things that you should be trusting. It is not witchy.
I agree with that. I mean, there are some people that have darker intentions and darker energy that are doing this work, I will say. So it's always just about tuning in, right, to ourselves. And when we are going to an intuitive, or when we are tuning into this ourselves, just making sure that the intention is pure and clean is also very important. But that could be a whole nother topic of conversation. But, being able to tune in to your gut is your guiding light. It's your guiding force. We're always getting intuitive hits. Even if you don't think that you are every day.
Yeah.
And if you want to call it your gut, great. People call it that.
Language.
That's the same damn thing.
Yeah. Amanda, what kind of speaking events do you do? I think it's absolutely fascinating that you were hired to do one for Mother's Day for people.
Yeah.
That is so sweet.
Yeah. So I did, there's a charity fundraiser. It's called Empowering Her, and they support mother loss, and now they're moving into father loss as well. And so I chills with that. And so, I went to there was a fundraising event on Saturday in Santa Monica. And then there was a retreat they lead for the women, and they lead them all over the world. So I also created some digital content that they used at a virtual retreat, and then did one in person for the girls. And I'm going to continue to stay involved with this group because I am very passionate about it. And I also think sometimes in life, when people are going through loss and grief, there's a different level of connection that they have to other people and to compassion for the world. I really feel like those girls are angels that have all just come together, because I was shown that vision. And so helping, that wasn't actually a part of, I mean, I always knew I wanted to give back to young girls and help, and that opportunity just came to me to serve them. And so it was an immediate yes for me. And then otherwise, I've spoken on different entrepreneurial stages, since in the past, I've focused mainly a lot of my guidance and a lot of the work that I teach and share around empowerment in entrepreneurship and business, and confidence in business, and money manifestation and creation, and wealth in business, and being the best leader that we possibly can be. So I've been on different entrepreneurial stages, and that's been a part of what I've done up to this date too. Yeah.
Awesome. So you're probably seeing that same shift then that most of our guests come on and talk about, and that we see.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if it was COVID. I told this group yesterday, it gave us all a little bit of an insight into more personal space. Like, we can see, if we didn't have this filter behind us, that we're in a house, that might hear a dog bark, you might have a husband walk in, you might have the Amazon guy. So it made us all realize we're not just robots, we're humans in a house, families. But I think it's bigger than that even. But are you seeing that shift as well, where more authenticity, vulnerability, intuition, and soul is coming into the workspace?
Yeah, because people have been forced to take a look at uncomfortable situations. And they've been forced to get creative. They've been forced to face certain things and fears and different things and different discomforts inside of themselves. We've been forced to take a look under the hood of our lives, and have had time to reflect, have been forced to have time to reflect, and opportunities to have compassion and learn and step out of judgment with people in the world, and all these things that we've had opportunities to look at over the last few years. So I believe that this was a part of it all along, and it was meant to be a part of how we grow, because again, sometimes we need a wake up call in order to shake us awake. Sometimes otherwise we get too comfortable in our day to day. We get too comfortable in our schedules. We get too comfortable in our patterns. And it was a pattern disruptor for a lot of people.
I'm grateful we got to do this. I mean, our podcast totally shifted into a different direction. We get to, interview and see amazing people like you. I always feel like we're in this space. Like, this is like the sense of soul, like a room or house or something. It's an entity.
I love it.
And that you're like here with us, But thank you so much for coming on. It's been really nice to get to know you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Such a fun conversation. The two of you are so spunky. I love your energy.
You know what I was thinking too is, I feel like our listeners are going to absolutely reach out, and I think that you would be a great person to work with for them. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
I can't wait for this book. Again, love the title. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so you could find me on Instagram at the Amanda Marit. Same with TikTok. I share a lot of guidance and different tips on those places. And then my website is amandamarit.com.
Awesome.
It's interesting. This isn't what I would have thought, but they're showing me the word money. So this is like a left field thing, but for some of you listening, I just keep getting the guidance, either raise your rates, either claim more for yourself, or get unapologetic with the kind of lifestyle you really want to have. There's a lot that's shifting with our money system as well, things that are shifting in our world and will be shifting in our world, and just stay in this place of abundance because there's so much available to all of us, each and every one of us. And every moment things can change. So I just keep, I keep seeing it, money. So
good.
Send
it on over.
Yeah. So expand your mindset and ability and availability to receive. Don't settle. Don't settle for the lower paying job. Maybe you're about to do that listening to this. Don't settle. Don't stop discounting your shit. It's like, stop discounting your rates. Stop discounting yourself. There are people out there, because I'm one of them, where people will pay you high ticket if you call yourself up there, and they want to. They see you as valuable. They know what the outcome is of them working with you. Like, one small tweak I can make, and it's just the type of client you serve. That's it. Go for the gold.
Awesome. Well, you're adorable. Your energy is soft and beautiful. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Shanna. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for being with us today. We hope you will come back next week. If you like what you hear, don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe.
Thank you. We rise to lift you up.
Thanks for listening.